have gotten the chance to watch Dangerous Animals, and I loved it. So I'm really excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank
Um, yeah, I will. I also wanted to tell you your first two movies, The Loved Ones and The Devil's Candy. I've watched The Loved Ones probably over a dozen times. I absolutely love that movie. I just introduced my 16-year-old daughter to it earlier this year. She's a big horror hound like me. She also loved it. So I was really excited to see that you had a new shark movie coming out. Sharks are my. I'm terrified of sharks. I have this Jaws shirt on, but they're like my favorite subgenre of horror, and most of them are bad. But yours sets itself apart. It's what do you think makes this different from the majority of kind of run-of-the-mill shark movies that come out?
Well, yeah, I mean you said it. The shark's not the monster, man's the monster. And
Mhm.
it's the first shark film I think in shark film history that has ever taken that angle. I mean, I've
Right.
never seen that before. So that really stood out in Nick Leopard's script. I was like, wow, this is finally the shark film that's going to correct the injustice that sort of Jaws did to sharks. As much as
Right.
I'm a huge Jaws fan. It's a masterpiece, but because it was so successful, every other shark
Hmm.
film kind of perpetuated this myth that sharks just hunt humans, and it's completely
Right.
untrue. So this felt like a way to kind of course correct, but also the fact that it's a serial killer film and a shark film rolled into one. I just thought that was such a kind of fun, unhinged, high concept. It was irresistible.
Right. You mentioned the script, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is the first movie you directed, but you didn't write yourself. What was that process like, and what led you to taking on somebody else's script?
I mean, it was really good. I've sort of, I went to film school, but I also come through advertising, so I'm very used to, they're much smaller scripts, but very used to
Mhm.
working with writers and I'd done a lot of script doctoring as well, and worked on other projects that had one that was like 8 weeks away from production and fell over. So I'm very used to
Mhm.
working with other writers, and Nick was just fantastic to work with. And I mean, eventually it's like I have to know it as well as it's one of my own scripts. And by the time we're talking about a 2 year process from me first reading the script and then trying to raise the finance and then working on the script constantly. And then as it moves from sort of producers to financiers, there are other notes. So by the end of it, Nick and I, we just go back and forth, and it's like working on it with the same brain. But I always break the script down into kind of character, kind of objectives, and do character breakdowns for all the actors and heads of department. So by the time it goes into it, I need to know it as if it's a part of me. Otherwise, I can't direct it.
Right. Tucker, I put in my review that I think Tucker is one of the best horror villains of probably the past decade. Jai Courtney was fantastic, completely just unhinged and having a blast. I'm curious, what was the casting process like for finding an actor for Tucker? Did you have somebody in mind when you read the script, or how did Jai get the role?
Well, Nikki Barrett was our casting director, and she's a legend in Australia
Hmm.
from Mad Max Fury Road. She does, there's a lot of big American films as well as Australian films, and has exquisite taste. And so Jai was always at the top of a very short list. But to be honest, this film was greenlit so suddenly to try and make a summer date that, and casting tends to take a while. So
Hmm.
I felt so fortunate to get him because he was kind of top of the list, but it takes a while to even get a script to an actor and through an agent, and for them to read it, and for them to work out if it's gonna be the right move strategically for their career, and then we have to be on the same
Right.
page. So I was very nervous about that first meeting with Jai because I had a real sense that this was kind of a role that he was born to play in a way, because he's very,
Hmm.
Captain Boomerang and Suicide Squad. He's got that real unhinged Australian kind of charisma. But I've also seen him in indies where I knew he was a very strong kind of character actor, and he's got nuance and he could capture the broken child inside the man. But he's also brilliant with stunts, and he's been in these big Hollywood films like Die Hard and Terminator, and
Right.
that's the amazing thing about Jai on set is he actually knows the difference between, like Welcome Aboard. He'd go, "This is a line for the audience, isn't it? This is a movie line," and great with stunts, and physically just really intimidating. Like he's one of those guys that is so big he could kill you with a punch. And you put all
Right.
that into kind of Captain Tucker, and Captain Tucker becomes pretty fearsome. But I didn't even think him as much as I wanted him. When I see the performance now, it was hard to. I couldn't imagine anyone else playing that role or it being any better. Like he just does it with such a dark, delicious twinkle in the eye, but it's still grounded in a way. And yeah.
Right. So all of your movies are they're each different, but they're all within sort of the horror kind of thriller realm. What is it about that genre that attracts you?
Um, well, I mean, what I love about horror is at its best, it exists in the moments between life and death, which is the most dramatic moment of anyone's life. And I always feel like it's a missed opportunity in horror films if you don't really care about the characters, because
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you see a lot of films where it's like, well, it's all about the kills, and it's like, well, yeah, the kills, that's great, that's fun, but they're kind of meaningless unless you care about the characters. So I just think about it in dramatic terms. It's really horror goes to the zenith of drama more than any other genre. And then if you can have characters that you care about, then there's something pretty special going on. And I always try and milk those moments between life and death because that's when I feel like the audience, you got them in the palm of your hand. And in the loved ones with the boiling kettle, it's like, oh, it's going to
Oh
happen
yeah.
now. Oh no, it's not. And you just keep, you know what I mean? Like you can just keep teasing.
Uh-huh.
Teasing.
There's been some space in between each of your movies. Do you intentionally leave like a gap or what's your process like when moving on to the next movie?
No, I don't intentionally leave a gap. I mean, between the loved ones and Devil's Candy, I was writing constantly, and then the Devil's Candy initially had no supernatural elements. It's just very hard to get the money for films that are about humans hunting other humans, and yeah,
Yeah.
Hollywood is risk averse, and that's what I'm most fascinated in, just the extremes of human nature. Like I'm really fascinated with serial killers, but it's not as easy to get money for those films that it is as it is supernatural kind of horror. So hence bend
Right.
Devil's Candy, towards the supernatural, even though I didn't want it to be too overt. I wanted it to almost be a heaven and hell kind of chess game that takes place
Uh-huh.
on Earth rather than having monsters. But that's why this was such a great opportunity because it's a serial killer film, but you've also got that safety net of the shark subgenre, which is really popular. So I was like, wow, this is I get to indulge my favorite type of horror film. Because serial killers, I find, they exist. They're kind of like the great whites of the world. They're
Yeah.
floating around us. So it's not like a fairy tale. It's not like, like Supernatural, which I love, and it can work on an allegorical level, but it doesn't genuinely scare me when, I turn the lights off.
Right.
But running into, Henry, like Henry,
Yeah.
Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and lack,
Uh-huh.
lack of empathy kind of lack of empathy scares me. But yeah, I mean, sorry, it's a long-winded answer to say I was also writing between the Devil's Candy and this, and optioned all of my scripts. It's people love it on the page, but it's Hollywood is kind of risk averse.
Right.
Even though I feel like as a filmmaker, my treatment is always very commercial. Like I'm as influenced by Jerry Bruckheimer as I am David Lynch, and Maverick was actually weirdly a big influence on Dangerous Animals, just with that glossy summer look,
Right.
and then the juxtaposition of kind of like violence against that.
Hmm.
So sometimes you know what I mean. It's like it's very easy to look at
Right.
things on a page. You can imagine what the Loved Ones was like on the page, and then you see it,
Yeah.
and it's like glam horror. It's really shiny
Uh-huh.
light.
Especially the loved ones and dangerous animals, as dark as they get, they're very fun and
Mm.
like entertaining movies. Is it difficult to find that balance between, like you said, pouring, boiling water into a brain hole and just still having fun time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the tone, Like I love movies that are escapism, and Dangerous Animals it's as influenced by Die Hard and Speed and action films, contained action films with kinetic energy as it is any other shark film or any other type of horror film, and it's in Michael Yuzerski's score, which kind of soars and it's very
Hmm.
character kind of based, and I'm a big fan of just Rocky, as well, where the
Right.
where the protagonist has to earn their survival. So they're all very much commercial decisions and it's slick kind of commercial filmmaking and very subjective where we're in the protagonist's shoes. And so it's
Hmm.
I hope my films feel like a ride. I'm always thinking about the
Right.
audience first, and that's just what I'm into. So you know what I mean? Like you just kind of do what
Yeah.
comes from you, and I'm the product of my cinematic influences, and that's just kind of what
Mhm.
comes out. But I'm very aware. I love films that look slick and that they're meticulously framed, and you almost want to lick
Right.
the screen. And then I feel like that gives me more license to kind of be more attacking in terms of the horror because you've got this kind of
Right.
very overt commercial look kind of balancing it.
Yeah, it looked fantastic. That's what one thing that makes it stand apart from the typical shark movies, especially some of those underwater scenes where you can just clearly see the shark swimming around, beneath the boat, and it just really creates an unease while looking spectacular. And the soundtrack and the choice of songs is also really good. I know when I watched The Loved Ones, I had that song "Not Pretty Enough" or "Am I Not Pretty Enough" stuck in my head forever. Forever. I couldn't get it out of my head. And Dangerous Animals also had really good use of songs. How do you pick what music you put in?
Well, I mean, to begin with, I just love music. I'm a real needle drop director. I'm a massive Tarantino fan. I think music's really
Mhm.
propulsive, but you can't just put anything on there. Like, it's got to be character driven. So, like Evie by Stevie Wright, which Tucker dances to. That's obviously
Right,
a song about hair, and he's he works at a kind of a seedy marina on the Gold Coast. He's going to listen to a lot of kind of Australian pub rock. So it works thematically. It captures the character. It's like what Ooby Dooby kind of represents is what's missing from Zephyr's life. That lack of kind of just like letting enjoy and love and dance and not and she's because she's had a hard life, she gravitates toward they're more kind of political and social songs. And but Moses is going, it's all right just to let go and to have fun and let that into your life. And so every even like the use of Crowded House, she came all the way from America, she had a blind date with Destiny. It's basically
right,
it serves kind of as narrative. So even though, and I work with a great music supervisor, Andrew Katatko, who because you see a lot of films where it's just like just slap what's popular on there, and that's
right.
I hate that. Like
Yeah.
it's got to be character driven, and you got to work from the inside out, and then hopefully all of that still adds to the fun and keeps it moving.
When I spoke to Hassie, I asked her if she considered Zephyr a final girl and who her favorite final girls were. Um, what do you think on this? Is Zephyr, do you consider her like a final girl within, the trope of the final girl survivor in horror? And who are some of your favorites that maybe inspired the character?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't really thinking of a final girl when I was kind of prepping it, but I think she is a final girl. I think she's probably the most defiant final girl because most of the time the final girls are just trying to survive, and she's absolutely doing that as well. But she's got so much backbone. She's happy to go toe to toe, kind of verbally with the
Hmm.
antagonist. Like there's and I think in many ways it's a collision course between these two broken people, and between there's weirdly a relationship there between antagonist and protagonist where there's a strange respect, even though Zephyr kind of uses the ocean in a kind of nourishing way, whereas Tucker kind of uses it for his own kind of devices. So which I think is a part of why she's kind of more successful.
Right.
Morally. But I mean, I'm a massive Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan, and I feel like at the
Hmm.
end, it's so raw and unhinged, and by the end of that, it's like Marilyn Chambers really like earns her survival. Like you feel like she's genuinely insane, and
Right.
I love characters that are pushed to that length because then you feel like. Um, then as an audience, it feels more aspirational. It feels like, wow, we're in
Right.
shoes and she can survive that. We can survive that. It makes you feel more powerful. Jamie Lee Curtis, in Halloween, it's obviously,
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, it's she's just so, I don't know. She's so good. And there's, I don't know. I just love final girls when they're a bit more solid. When it's more like the final girl is just the final girl because she hasn't had sex during the film. Like
Right.
it was like happening all through the 80s. It's still fun, those kind, but it's sort of, it's nice to have a bit more substance as a final girl. And I feel like Zephyr's got a lot of that.
I know I have time for one more question. I know you do a lot of writing. Do you have Anything in the cooker right now? I mean, this movie seems like it's going to be very successful. It looks like your most polished film yet. Do you think that this will help you maybe get onto your next project? And do you have something kind of lined up?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of projects out there, and yeah, there's one that feels very close. And yeah, it's small town serial killer procedural, which has
Nice.
has a yeah real point of difference to other serial. I mean, there is a kind of a consistency there where each. You look at Princess and Daddy, and it's almost like a father-daughter serial killer team, and
Right.
Ray Smiley in the Devil's Candy, who's like almost like a man
Mhm.
child, and then Tucker is like the tourist host with the most, like the Steve Irwin
Yeah,
kind of on acid or something. So they're all very different, and this one would be about a disorganized serial killer, which I've never seen on screen. They're always so meticulous. But yeah, yeah, there's a bunch of projects out there, and so I don't want to put a date on it, given what's happened in the
of
past.
course.
That's yeah, definitely got a lot cooking.